Today I will be looking at the Laurier Gemini. Laurier is a micro brand based out of New York and they are designing some very compelling vintage inspired watches. Brands love to throw around the phrase vintage inspired quite loosely, but I'm here to tell you that Laurier is very serious about it. The Gemini Chronograph is a beautiful example of going back to the 60s and 70s for watch design inspiration. After spending time with this watch, it appears that the purpose of the Gemini was to look like a vintage watch and feel like a vintage watch, and this watch delivers exactly that. However, on their website, Laurier state that their watches are built to be reliable tools and not precious jewelry. My experience with the Gemini suggests that this isn't really a tool watch by definition, but I'm also going to show you why that's okay. The case is slim, simple, and has an elegant curve that stretches across the entire lug-to-lug width. The lugs are drilled through, making strap changes a breeze. I've got it here on a brown leather strap from Crown & Buckle. The case, however, isn't where this watch shines, it's the dial. The dial is the first thing that catches your eye, and it's the only thing you will be looking at until you take your eyes off the watch. I got the blue variant because I'm a sucker for blue watches. The dial is contrasted beautifully with two white subdials. There are 2 points of subtle color on the Gemini logo and on the timing seconds tip. The choice of colors on this dial really are perfect. Here you can see the beautiful yellow tip on the seconds hand, which also aligns perfectly with the seconds ring on the dial. The bezel has a little slack, which is why it appears misaligned just by a small margin. The narrow bezel is true to its vintage roots and adds plenty of character to the watch. The bezel grip is a bit smooth and typical of vintage watch design, and the bezel action is just about alright. I've noticed some backplay, but considering this is a 24-click 12-hour bezel that doesn't require high precision, I'm okay with it. Also to note is the absence of a fixed tachymeter scale, but I prefer having the ability to track a second time zone with this bezel instead. Here you can see the coin edge bezel that offers a bit less friction than I would have liked. But I urge you to appreciate this watch for its beautiful design execution rather than expect it to be a precise timing instrument. You can now get a glimpse of the entire case and its simple but appropriate aesthetic. Moving on to the movement. It is a Seagull ST19, which is typical of an entry-level chronograph watch. I'm not a huge fan of this movement, but I also understand the inability to find a good alternative chronograph movement at this price. This movement is also quite true to the era considering its design originated in the 60s. Everything about this watch really appears to be an accurate recreation of a vintage timepiece, including the pushers and the slightly oversized crown design. The crown and chronograph action is where I feel the delicate nature of this watch. This doesn't really feel robust or secure enough to warrant an everyday watch for me, and the fact that it is rated for 50 meters of water resistant puts me off just a little bit. This is a watch that I think is wonderful to add to a collection, but not really for a one-watch enthusiast, if those even exist. The next point is possibly the most controversial, the plexiglass. I personally prefer sapphire crystal on all my watches, but Laurier have a good explanation for why they've stuck with plexiglass, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it works. The warmth from the plexiglass and the slightly excessive distortion from the thick dome glass delivers the perfect nostalgic watch experience. The hands are loomed well and the bezel has a loomed marker, but the hour hands lack loom and the seconds ring has small loomed squares instead. I think excessive loom would ruin the vintage appeal, but I also understand folks that like bright hour markers in their go anywhere, do anything kind of watches. The loom on the hour and minute hands is great, but I'm not sure I've fallen in love with the hour hand design just yet. I chose to immediately put this watch on a leather strap and didn't use the metal bracelet. For this I will avoid making comments about the bracelet quality and comfort, but it is very well designed and fits perfectly in the 60s design language. I did notice the lack of many micro adjustment slots, which may be a deal breaker for some. The watch sits very low on my wrist, just as you would expect from a real vintage timepiece. The dimensions are perfect for my 6¼ inch wrist. The overall case is 47mm lug to lug and 39mm wide. The case is 10.5mm thick, but there's another 2 to 3mm if you count the plexiglass protrusion. Shorter lugs may have made this watch more accessible for those with narrower wrists because this watch ends up wearing a little larger than it is lug to lug. The overall presentation is wonderful. The watch ships inside a leather watch roll which is really well made, and it can hold another watch. You also get an instruction sheet on how to properly use this chronograph movement, and I think this is really helpful for first-time chronograph users. Here you can see some of the detailed instructions on how to not break the ST19. You also get a screwdriver to adjust the metal bracelet, and while this is a small and low-cost gesture, I think this is a great idea and I wish that all watch brands would do it. This yellow card is a handwritten note from the owners of Laurier and is another wonderful gesture, making this ever so slightly more personal. The whole watch roll ships in this Laurier branded box, which is wrapped in a nice paper wrap. Overall, I really love the accurate vintage inspired design and execution from Laurier, but I'm not convinced that the Gemini is a suitable everyday watch for me. I've put my name down for a Falcon in the upcoming run, and I think that watch would better suit my requirements. My opinion is that you should consider the Gemini if you want a beautiful watch that you can wear on occasion as you would a fine piece of jewelry. It has enough character and charm to warrant a place in your collection, but if you're looking for a stress-free, go anywhere, do anything kind of watch, this may not be the watch for you. Once again, thank you for watching this video and be sure to check out the full review of this watch in the link below.